afternoon. We are. I'm Raph.
I'm Leslie.
I'm Isaac.
Hello.
We're students from the Virata School of Business, UP Dalaman. We're having a course, BA 198 or Business Communications, and we're supposed to interview entrepreneurs and ask them how their stories develop.
So basically, for this, we'd like to hear your stories so that we could be inspired, and as well we could share with our classmates how it is to really have your own business, even at the very young age of I'm 20 years. 20, no, a very young age.
My name is Abbo Hernandez. I'm from Ateneo de Manila University. I'm in my 4th year taking up management economics. The business that I'm currently in is called SUBARASHII RAMEN. It's actually a Japanese food stall that sells ramen predominantly, but we also sell other Japanese products as well. So yung mga yakisoba, cold soba, for example, gyoza, all of those other Japanese foods. But mostly ramen yung focus ng food store.
Okay.
That's great. Alright, so we want to look into how the business essentially started. I think the first question we want to ask is, what inspired you to get into the business?
Well, what inspired me first to get into business in general was because my dad used to have a business before. And when I saw him do his work, parang it seemed like it was fulfilling. So initially, I just wanted to have a business because I wanted to see what it was that my dad felt. But eventually, the reason why I wanted to have a business as I got into Ateneo and then got older was because you needed to have an income na rin because you were getting older and it started hitting you na you can't just have no money at all and just rely on your parents. So that's why I got into business in general. Why I got into the Japanese inspired theme. Actually, there are 2 reasons. The first one was I really like Japanese food. So me and my girlfriend always eat Japanese food. But other than that, if you look at kasi Japanese food, yung mga binibenta ng mga products, parang it's easier to make them, especially ramen. It's easier to make ramen because you just have to make the broth, you just have to make the noodles, and then they're easy to put together. So the profit margins are a bit higher. It's very appealing, and every time you sell it in a school, they don't really have Japanese food. So it's a new experience for everyone. And they're usually expensive, but our version is cheaper. So
why ramen in particular? What led you to
ramen
go towards ramen instead of other Japanese food like sushi or the gyoza and all those other Japanese dishes? Why ramen in particular?
Why ramen in particular? Well, when we were thinking of which Japanese food to introduce to Ateneo, when we thought of yung mga sushi, for example, or just selling gyoza, they didn't seem like they were a full meal. But at the same time, because we wanted to cater to people who wanted to have lunch in JSEC, the place where the food stall is in. If we sold sushi, for example, it wouldn't have been a full meal for the students. So ramen was a full meal. But the reason why we didn't think about selling mga rice meals, for example, was because everyone had rice meals and it was harder to compete with rice meals that were familiar to students. So for example, if we sold mga Japanese rice meals, tapos yung katabi namin, the stall beside us would also be selling the same thing, it's more familiar and people would rather go there. So we sold a new product, which was ramen. At saka soup, nobody really sells soup because soup is usually either very difficult to make or very expensive. So that's why we also sold ramen. The other reason why we wanted to sell ramen was because I actually tried ramen just recently, and just recently in ramen nagi and all those other things. It's parang when you're tired and you want to just unwind or relax, it seems like a very good way to relax, to drink soup. Kasi yung mga meals parang you do it every day, but it's a different experience.
What vision did you have for yourself and for the business?
For myself and for the business? Well, for myself, I really wanted to start a business early so that when I graduated, I'd have something that I could expand. So at least set the foundations while the risks are less. Kumbaga, kasi if you're still a student and you're starting a business, if the business unfortunately fails, it's not, you haven't put everything in that particular business yet. But at the same time, because you're a student and because you're a student nga, it's easier to ask other people for help and all those other things. So I wanted to start where it was less risky and then expand when I graduated. So that when I got out of college, I automatically had a source of income.
Quick question, pala. I'm just curious. What does why Subarashi? What does Subarashi?
Subarashi.
Ay, Subarashi.
Yeah, Subarashi.
Subarashi.
Yes.
Okay. Subarashi. Why Subarashi? What is Subarashi?
I think Subarashi in Japanese means excellent, if I'm not mistaken. Or at least that's what my other partners tell me it means.
Excellent.
Excellent. That's what I heard.
So, who helped you in starting your business?
Actually, in our business, there are 5 of us who started the business with different roles. So they were the main people who helped me start the business. So one is in charge of the finances, one is in charge of human resource, all of those other things. So sila yung mga main contributors, one of the main contributors to the business. The other people who helped me in my business are also my parents, syempre. Because when we had to start the business, we needed capital. And while we had some money saved, we also needed additional capital. So it was the 5 other partners and my parents who helped me start this.
From coming up with the idea and creating, making it happen actually. So actually, one thing that as business students we are aware of is it's easy to come up with an idea, but to make it a reality is the bigger challenge. So how did you make it a reality, and how long did it take for you to make to realize that idea?
Well, we and my partners, we started talking about the business, I think a year before we entered because there's a qualifiers for you to get into JSEC. So a year before that, we were already talking to each other how we would make the ramen or what concept we wanted. So it took a year before we could come up with the products itself that we were going to sell. I think the biggest challenge that you face when starting a business itself is making the recipe. So making the recipe that tastes good but at the same time is cheaper because you have to sell them to the students. So that was the longest part of the process. Because setting up operations was easy once you knew what the recipe was. Having looking for help was also easy because a lot of them were already available in JSEC. But the biggest challenge is really coming up with the recipe that people would like.
I see. Tell us more about the JSEC challenge.
JSEC challenge. The JSEC challenge. Actually, JSEC is a sort of parang business lab. So it's like a business lab where students can set up food stalls each year. So what happens is there's a qualifier where around 30 stalls per season will compete in, and then around 20 of them will get into JSEC and be able to set up a food stall. When you're in JSEC, you'll have to follow all the natural rules for all the rules that you have for other businesses, like you have to have a permit, you have to pay for your rent, you have to pay for your electricity. So it really trains students how to run a business in school, but it gives you the opportunity to have a business in school also.
Let me ask, where did you get your initial capital, for example?
The initial capital, our initial capital actually was, we had to give 45,000 each person. So there are 5 of us, so that's roughly mga 225,000. My initial capital, around 35,000 came from myself, and then 10,000 came from my parents. So that's how I got my initial capital, which I paid back naman to my father, to my mother. But I just needed the extra 10,000 because I also needed to have some money left to save. That's how we got our initial capital.
So everything was really from personal, or did you also get some sponsors or investors for your business?
Because we're a relatively small business, so we didn't get investors yet, nor did we get sponsors at the time that we started the business.
Because your operations are limited to JSEC only?
Yes. But we actually also have operations mga for example, there's a convention, and then we also open up food stalls. May mga bazaars, and we also have food stalls in certain places. But mostly we operate in school.
So these conventions, are these conventions in Ateneo or outside of Ateneo?
Outside of the media.
Are they related to Ateneo, or is it totally different? They just found an opportunity and you jumped right into it?
Yeah, they're totally unrelated from Ateneo. I think the latest convention that we went to was a convention for League of Legends, the computer game. That was the last one. But they're totally unrelated. As long as there's an opportunity, we'll see if we can make money, how much foot traffic is there, and then we go to.
How did you reach these conventions and bazaars? Did they approach you, or did you approach them?
Mostly the bazaars approach the stall. So they message us on our page, and then after they message us on our page, we ask for details, and then we think about whether or not we want to do the bazaars.
How do you promote your business, which led to them approaching
us? Actually, we started with a Facebook page, which we update regularly. That's the way that we advertise to people outside Ateneo. But mostly in Ateneo, we have posters around schools, we have mga discount promotions, all of those other things. But mostly, yun pa lang yung channels namin for marketing.
Alright. So, what financial challenges did you face after you started your business?
Financial challenges. I think the first challenge that we faced was the way kasi ramen is usually hot. Well, it's usually warm, and it's really good if it's either raining or if it's cold. But in the Philippines, there are times where it's really, really hot. So the first problem we faced was seasonal yung the revenue of the business was seasonal. So it was based on whether or not it was warm or it was raining. So that was the first financial challenge we had. Now, we didn't have enough customers in times where the weather was not suitable for what we were selling for ramen. The second challenge we had was also setting up a system where we were going to collect money every day. It actually is harder than we expected it to be, to collect money, to have the exact changes, because you really have to have a set system where you can calculate your daily revenues, especially since we're a small stall. Tapos the way that we get our deliveries isn't that we'll get it every month. So it's hard to project how much of a particular part of the recipe you need every month. Kasi nga it changes, diba? Because it's seasonal. So if it rains today, more people will come. So because the delivery comes at different points of the month, it was also harder to understand the cost, the daily cost. So it was also harder to see how we were doing every day, all of those things. The third one, I think, would be, another financial challenge that we faced was in months where we didn't have enough money, or in months where mahina yung sales namin, we had to compensate for it by selling something else. But by selling something else, so we'd add a new product. So for example, now because it's a bit hotter, we've been selling desserts, and we've also been selling cold soba, which is a noodle but it's colder, so that we can adapt to the climate. But that also adds new costs, which are harder to calculate. So whatever growth we projected in the past is now different because we're adding newer and newer products.
Now, in terms of operations, for example, what are the challenges that you face on a day-to-day basis?
In terms of operations, the first one I think is inventory. It's a challenge to do the inventory because every product that we sell, there are different parts of the recipe that go into a particular product, and it was harder to monitor at the start. But now naman we have a system to monitor it. But that was the first challenge that we faced. Parang you'll be surprised na you don't have enough of this anymore kasi may mga humihingi ng extra, for example. So if you sell a bowl of ramen that has, say, meat toppings on it, and people want more meat, the employees will probably give it to them because they don't want to say no, so that they'll come back. And eventually, you lose a lot of the parts of the recipe and you can't really completely monitor it. The second one was the measurements of the the measurements of the ingredients itself. Because the measurements of it's hard to measure the ingredients sometimes. So we had to find a way that each product would have the same amount of the ingredients. So the system that we came up with was that we had to buy cups that were suitable for the amount of the ingredients that we wanted per product. The last one would be the delivery. The biggest problem with delivery is that most suppliers, they're not that consistent. Suppliers aren't very consistent, especially because we're small scale. So if you're small scale, surprisingly, they don't completely focus on you. So for example, you ask for meat. Usually, they'll focus on their bigger clients, and then if they have time, they'll pass by you this day. If not, they'll pass by you tomorrow. And in some instances, they even give you the leftovers from the different from their different clients. Another problem with suppliers is we're actually close with some suppliers. So some of my partners were close with some suppliers before. That's why it was harder to negotiate with them if there were problems with the product that they were giving us. So I remember there was a problem with the water. Parang half of the water that was given to us either had some dirt or may butas. But since the supplier was the uncle of my teammate, it was so hard to negotiate with the uncle because she didn't want to insult her uncle, all of those other problems. So those were the basic problems we had to operate.
So do you have divisions within your corporation? Or like the business
among your
in general?
partners?
Among
Yeah.
yourself?
Yeah, we actually have divisions. So since there are 5 of us, I do the human resource work. My partner's JV, he does all the accounting. Clarissa does all the marketing. Erlene does all of the operations, and Angelo does all of the legal work. All the legal work.
How were you able to divide the tasks?
It was based on either what we were free to do or what we wanted to do. So Clarissa was communications technology. So among all of us, she had the most advantage in terms of making posters, in terms of making the marketing plans. She also had most of the marketing experience, so she had to go for marketing. I went for human resource because I was in I had experience doing campaigns for labor and all of those other things. And then my partner JV, actually for JV he just had the highest grade for accounting, so we made the accounting. And then Erlene kasi when we started was already the person contacting all of the suppliers, so we thought that it would be better if he was there. Angelo wanted to do legal work because he also wanted to become a lawyer in the future, so he wanted to start experiencing.
So since you're in HR, how do you maintain the dynamics within your team, the motivation, considering all the stress with this work? So how do you maintain that level of enthusiasm for the business? And given that you're coming from different backgrounds as well, so how do you synergize the team?
For the workers, we actually came up with a workers manual that they had to sign before they started working. So the workers manual had all of the things we expected from workers, and in the instance that they make a mistake, what sanctions will be given. It also had a part where they could report if there are any breakages, report if they're being abused or even abused. Parang they feel like something wrong is going on, or basta as long as they wanted to report against us, report against their own co-workers, anything. So that was the first thing. The reason why we wanted to do that was because we wanted expectations to be clear, so that in the instance where there is a problem, we can point to a contract that they signed that would say what the sanctions were. So we don't just base our solutions on a situation per situation basis. The second is in terms of personal relationships with the workers. We actually talk to them a lot. So we're friends with our workers. We eat with the workers, yun yung mga personal relationship things. And if they have problems, they usually approach us. So, for example, when one of the workers had a problem with his kid, we personally attended to the health problem. When he had a problem pala himself, when a worker was sick, we personally attended to him. We brought him to the hospital, we stayed until he was okay. So that's how we maintain personal relationships. So we met their families. We know where they come from. For the partners, it was good that we started out as friends even before we became partners. So we were already group mates in a lot of different major projects before we became group mates in the business. So we already knew how each other worked, and we also had personal connections with each other. I think it's not easy to have your friends as partners because there are a lot of problems that you just want to tell your partner but you can't tell them because you're friends, you don't want to offend them until eventually you get so mad that you just tell them. But I think we all had an understanding before we started the business that if there were problems, we were going to handle it professionally. That it didn't mean that we didn't like each other, it's just that there's something that needs to be done. So that's how we maintain our relationship. The reason I think we're enthusiastic still in doing the business is because we're I mean, I think the simplest answer is if you still earn, you'll probably be very enthusiastic with the business. But I think more than that is because we actually like the product that we're selling. And magandang experience siya eh. I mean, it sounds very cliche, but having a business, your first business, actually sort of feels like you're maturing or whatever it is. But we're going through it together. So I think that's why we're still happy.
You mentioned that it's difficult to really work with friends because there are some constraints. Has the working with the business caused any strain on your friendship, and how did you resolve that?
Yeah, I think when everything gets really, I think the best example is our first bazaar. Our first bazaar, we didn't really know what to do, so we were very stressed because we didn't know how to get the supplies from our stall to MOA. We didn't know how to set up the operations because the place was really small, the voltage was really small also, so we couldn't cook it there. But so what happened was we all had conflicts at that time because none of the parts of the operations was working very well. So it did have a certain strain in our friendship. But what we did was, when we realized that none of us were talking to each other because we were focusing on our parts, we just decided to sit down and say what the problems were, and then we came up with the solutions together. I think the reason why that was better, or why it resolved the problem, was because we all agreed. The problem was just that we weren't in the same page. So that's just how we resolve things. Every time there's a problem, we just sit together and then we tell each other the problem. Eventually naman, if you come up with a solution, you will start feeling better about the person. Because you're not really mad at the person, you're just mad at what the person is doing. I think that's, for me at least, that's how we resolve it.
So, how about in terms of managing your relationship with the Ateneo management, and even the other people who put money in your business, for example, your parents? How did you go about managing those relationships?
For my parents, I think because we were able to pay our parents early on pa, so mga 2 to 3 months, so they weren't really a problem. But in times where we needed advice, we always went to our parents. So if we needed to ask about what do we do if a worker does this, we'd always ask our parents. So they were a big help in terms of asking for advice because they had more experience. For the Ateneo management's a bit tricky. The reason why we actually can't sell fresh sushi is because they don't allow any raw foods to be sold in the school because it might have some sort of
It might be hazardous.
Oh, it might be hazardous now. And you also can't sell anything in school that you didn't cook in school. So there are a lot of health standards that we had to follow initially. And it was hard because a lot of the work that needs to be done for Japanese food stalls actually have to be done not in school. So we had, that was the first challenge that we faced. The way that we handled it was that we asked them if we could extend working hours or something along those lines. So we always try to negotiate with them. So that's how we handled them. We always just tried to negotiate with them. We waited it out. We didn't get mad at them. We didn't tell them that we were paying the rent anyway. We just negotiated with them because in the end, it's still they're the landlords. So you still have to negotiate with landlords. I think the reason why you have to do that is because if you have a bad relationship with your landlord, the business, you inevitably have to move. Because if you can't, for example, if you can't pay on time and they know that you can't pay on time, they're less likely to renew your lease, all of those things. But the Ateneo community naman has always been a good community. So the management has always been very open to negotiations. The head of JSEC itself, the head of JSEC itself always wanted to listen to our opinions because the Ateneo management thinks that JSEC, the place where our food stall is a place where students should be able to innovate. So they always include us or consult with us when they want to improve the services of JSEC.
Alright, so how long did it take you to achieve the results you wanted to achieve?
The first milestone, or the first achievement that we wanted to have was to break even. And then after we broke even, it was including na yung mga paying of your parents, blah blah. So first we wanted to break even. After we broke even, we wanted to introduce a new product every 2 months. That was the next achievement we wanted to have. And then the next achievement was to open up stall, to go into bazaars, so to introduce the business slowly to other customers outside the university. For the break even, it actually took us 3 months. After 3 months, we already broke even. We were also surprised that we broke even that early. We broke even after 3 months, and then the next month, we already had enough money to pay our parents for the initial capital. And then after that, the next month after that, when the school year started, we were already able to introduce a new product, which was the gyoza served with rice, a rice meal, which was the cheapest meal that we introduced. So it was the cheapest meal in JSEC, because most meals in JSEC were usually around 100, 120, but the meal that we sold was for mga 80 pesos, and they were all surprised that 80 peso meal existed in JSEC. So that was the next achievement that we did. So for the first achievement, it took us 3 months. For the next achievement, we followed the schedule. After 2 months, we introduced a new product. For the bazaar, we thought that the bazaar would actually happen a bit later, but it also happened earlier. Mga less than 6 months, we already got invited to our first bazaar. So everything was fast naman. We achieved all of the initial achievements that we wanted. I think in a span of less than a year, we were able to achieve our goals for the first year of the business. The next goal is syempre to expand the business outside the school, have stalls outside the school. But we haven't finished our lease in school yet, so that's the next goal that we haven't achieved yet.
So, in terms of feedback, how has your market responded to the products?
To the products? The initial reaction of the customers is always that they're surprised that there's a ramen stall. So when they go there and then they see SUBARASHI ramen, they ask, ate ramen talaga yung binibenta nyo, yung may sabaw, mga ganun sila. So the initial reaction is always that they're surprised. Maybe because it is somewhat a novelty to sell ramen in school. But, so they accepted it, they accepted the product. The initial one was always that they were excited that a ramen stall existed in school. Other people thought that it was also a good idea, so the customers thought that maybe it's a good idea because it was easy to make daw, ganyan mga bagay. There were also some people who reacted badly, saying that you can't make ramen for that price, that you probably can't make good ramen at that price. But then when they tasted it, they said that it tasted good naman pala daw. So they were also surprised how we were able to make the ramen. And still, there are still some people that say that, but you know, there are always people who will say that it won't last that long when we hit summer, but where we can't sell anything anymore. But I think we agree at summer we really have low sales in terms of the ramen, but that's why we have other products because the business isn't just one product naman. Yun, that was how they reacted to the business.
How about the Ateneo administration or management? How did they react to your business?
They were the people who really said, "Na you really can't make ramen for that price." they were really the first people to tell us na because you have to present it before you can join the contest. The initial contest really, how do you make the ramen? How do you make the ramen daw? Baka naman lasang ano siya, parang hindi yung black, parang black lang daw.
Yeah.
Then we just marketed it as ramen. But we said no, we were actually selling ramen. So that was their initial reaction. And then when they saw the stall and then tried it out, they actually liked the concept of a Japanese food stall selling ramen in school. That's why they approved of our project and that's why they allowed us to get into JSEC. Where syempre kasi most administrators will always think about the cost and all of those things. The second reaction that they had was in terms of the profit margins. Because it's not really not that expensive to make ramen, so the profit margins are higher. So what they were surprised with was how well we handled the costs of our products.
So, as for all the other aspiring entrepreneurs, what would be your message for them?
Look into
Yeah, so for those who want to also get into business, those who want to get a feel of entrepreneurship, what would be your advice for aspiring entrepreneurs?
Okay. Do I really have to look into
Yeah.
That's so weird. That's so weird. Okay. What I would say is for anyone who wants to start a business, they don't have to wait until they graduate. They can start doing it as early as college. And that's because it's really risk-free to do it in college. You still have your allowance, you still have school and all of those other things. And you have friends who aren't that busy, who can start the business with you. So it's really the most risk-free way to get your business dreams going. And you also shouldn't be afraid to ask for help from your parents, from your teachers, because while we think that teachers are just there to teach us, they actually know a lot about business and they can really help you. So that's it.
Alright, thank you so much, Abbo, for helping us.
Yes, thank you, Abbo.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate
Your
it.
story is very inspiring. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much.